Hello, welcome to the ECR Retail Loss, Sell More and Lose Less podcast series. My name is Colin Peacock. I work with a community of experts and academics who are keen to share their latest research findings and best practices. And every week or two in this series, I'll be joined by one of those experts and academics to discuss some of the very latest insights from our meetings and discussions and research on best practices. This week, I'm joined by Professor Emmeline Taylor.
Hi, Colin. And how nice that we've colour coordinated today.
Yes, especially for the podcast listeners. I think that they really appreciate the colour coordination. But anyway, we had a meeting recently about the security operations centres. These are where retailers bring together in one room all the video feed from their stores or their distribution centres, fulfillment centres, etc. We've been tracking this for over 10 years. The change over the last 10 years has been astonishing, enabled by the move to IP technology, video technology, and away from analog. But also just the bandwidth has expanded so much that there's now just such a plethora of possible use cases. As one CEO of a company that makes the software for video said, it's almost like we've created a sandpit for you all to play in, and it's down to your imagination how you may want to use that. So I started off with some survey results from 29 retailers who represented about 52,000 stores. Often they had just under 2 SOCs, security operations centres, and an average of about 28 full-time people working in those centres. We looked at what they were using them for, and the name's in the tin. It's a security operation, so most of the work is security. A lot of the work is planned, things such as gathering evidence packs, for example, being one example of a planned piece of work, and unplanned would be responding to an incident live, and shouting to the store and to the perpetrators, get out of the store, down the audio. So that's just a range. But we went through that, and then we had a retailer present their journey. I think it went back at least 7 years, and how they have built out a security operations center, or a central monitoring place. And then we heard from the retailers. We had, I guess, about 60 odd retailers on the call, all contributing in different ways to the discussion as of when I was able to call on them, and they weren't on mute. But anyway, we did about 90 minutes in the end. It was fascinating, actually. But what were your takeaways, and what were the notes that you took down that could be instructive for those retailers who weren't able to join the call?
Yeah, it really was a fascinating discussion. I think the first thing that I learned was that socks are not those woolly garments at the end of your feet. It's actually a security operating centre. And you presented some really interesting findings to kick us off with, and responses from 29 different businesses about how they're utilising operation centres. And it just really drove home just the variance and the level of maturity. So, you've already mentioned these have been around for nearly a decade, but some businesses very much in their sort of early steps towards developing these centres, whereas others have already begun to diversify. They might have multiple SOCs focusing on different things, whether that's alarms or whether it's broadcasting to, criminals in store. But what really captured my imagination about this, it made me think about an interview that I'd done with a store manager a few months ago. And a store manager said to me, I was employed to manage the store, but I'm a crime manager. I spend all of my days identifying, reporting, responding to crime. And what I love about the SOCs is the potential, when you centralise some of these functions, is that in your bricks and mortar stores, staff can get on with the job that they've been employed to do, delivering incredible customer service. And so for me, that's really, what these centres should be about. But yeah, it was quite striking, really, wasn't it? What did you think around the variance in terms of, the potential on how these centres can be operated?
Well, as you say, it's everything from sort of picking up on slips and trips claims. Was that a real claim or was it not a real claim? It's one example from a retailer was that they have 30 or 40 stores every night doing some sort of activity that's decorating or refitting, and they could offer remote guards. Another one talked about virtual store audits. How fascinating would that be? Normally, when you have a loss prevention person turn up, they're turning up, and everyone looks smart and clean, and everything's working. How fascinating to be able to sort of dip into a store at any random time with the permission of the store manager to see, are things going the way they should be? Is the food waste being recorded properly? Are they carrying out the checks on the exit? Is the store security guard? Are they in the right place? At the right times? Are the back doors being blocked? The potential is huge, as we shared before. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
sandpit.
Definitely. And it just gives that enhanced visibility, doesn't it, over, not just crime and security, but over, really key operations of the store. You just picked up on something, though, that we talked about quite a lot around, what do store associates feel about, these centres? Because when I spoke to individuals in store, on the shop floor, largely they're really positive about them. They feel that extra support. They feel that there's somebody who can intervene at the push of a button. They've got more communication. But I did wonder about some of the communications to store associates that they're not being spied on. That it isn't about their performance. And I think it's important that businesses get that communication right to ensure that staff are always on side and they don't feel that there's a big brother potentially watching over them.
This is a really interesting point. I mean, in terms of how to build a business case for one of these remote monitoring centres, often the chief financial officer wants a financial return, and so one way you can, and one way that has been proven to get that business return, is to show a reduction in the shrink number. And so, if you can show a 20% reduction in shrink, and we think that's because people may respond better, may behave better, may not do things that they
Yeah.
might otherwise do because actually they can be detected. So that fear of being detected, increases and perhaps reduces the opportunity that some people might take. So I do feel that that's a way that some retailers are going to try to have to build the business case, by getting this halo effect. Here we are, we're launching, you now for your safety and security. You're now being covered by a security operations center. So any concerns you might have, etc. And then perhaps within the first week of that operation, just by coincidence, every store that's now being covered, has an internal theft case uncovered.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, in terms of that return on investment, there's lots of different ways, I think, to demonstrate that, whether it's deterring criminal activity, whether it's increased detections. I wondered if there might be some unanticipated benefits as well, so thinking about that store manager, would it potentially, increase retention, staff retention, or staff recruitment is easier because people feel safer on the shop floor, perhaps?
Well, I think if you're a lone worker, and you're the only person in the store, knowing that there's someone there at the press of a button, I think it must be hugely reassuring, and probably would be something that would make you, at least want to turn up for the job and be there, because it could be pretty scary working at 11 o'clock on your own late at night, and
Yeah.
potentially people coming into the store, and you would not be protected.
Yeah, definitely. And just by extension on that as well, one of the things that many of the presenters mentioned was that having these security centres actually enhance their relationship with law enforcement, because
Yes.
they felt that the intelligence that they were gathering was more robust. It was easier for them to share it. If they did call out the police, it was usually because they had a very, compelling reason to do so. So I think for any business case, demonstrating how you can build stronger relationships with law enforcement, I think has to be a positive thing.
Well, this is music to the CFO's ear, isn't it? Because, I mean, I guess in two ways. First of all, the evidence collection, if you're asking every single store to do it, their own different way, and That's really problematic. So doing it once centrally in the right way feels like a productivity improvement. But also and we heard and saw the evidence for, a lot of them are also visually verifying the alarm. So, not sending out a store manager at 4 o'clock in the morning, only to find a squirrel, rustling around
Yeah.
in the nuts aisle, and setting off the alarm. They hate the fruit aisle, by the way.
No, definitely. I think, yeah, just, it seems to just have so many different positives. And I guess time will tell how they're going to evolve. But they're certainly a great example of how retailers are pulling their socks up.
Yes, boom, boom.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Yes, you'll be back next week. Yeah. Look, I mean, that's a refreshing take on it, and I think, what I think, is really good is just how you your takeaway has been very much, well, how can this help the store associate in the store, and how can these be enablers for, a more productive store, a better store, a store with better jobs. That's
Yeah.
really fascinating. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
And we'll
Colin.
see you next time.
Fantastic. Thank
All the
you.
best. Bye bye. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you for joining us. And thanks to all the ECR Retail Loss community for the sharing of their knowledge, their research, and latest learnings that ensure that we become truly a global platform for learning. My name is Colin Peacock. This is the Sell More and Lose Less podcast. And if you liked it, please subscribe so you automatically get all future episodes. And also, if you think your colleagues and friends might also like it, please ask them to follow ECR Retail Loss on LinkedIn and tune in to our next podcasts. If you didn't like it, then let us know and we'll try and fix it. Either way, see you next time. Thank you again.